Welcome, everyone, to the December meeting of the Finance Committee. Chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Kenny, thank you. Any discussion, amendments? There being none, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes of the previous meeting signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are carried. We'll move right into our action agenda. Item 1, request for transfer of funds attached for committee approval. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 1. Is that, Fred, did you say move?
Yes.
Moved by Mr. Monroe. Second? Second, Mr. Kenny. Thank you. Any discussion on the transfers? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 2, request from the Treasurer's Office. 2A, request for a new contract with TAG Consulting Group Corp. For indirect cost analysis services for the term commencing January 1/15 and terminating December 31st, 17, with the option of a 3-year renewal. The annual cost of the contract will be $5,200 for years 2015 through 17 and $5,000 for years 18 through 20. Funding for this contract is available within the existing budget. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 2A. Gene and Bill, thank you. Discussion? Mike, you just want to?
All right, this is a mandated requirement that we have to do an audit of our indirect costs. We went out to bid. This gentleman, we have another company right now that we're under contract with, and that ends in December. The gentleman that was actually doing the audits broke out on his own and created his own firm, and we're saving almost $1,000 a year with this contract. So, do you want me to give you a quick rundown of what an indirect cost is?
Just quickly. Yeah.
Okay. How do I explain this? It's all right. In my office, we do certain things that are required by DSS to get done. Okay, and the indirect cost analysis comes in, and they look at what we're doing to see if maybe that can be an indirect cost for DSS that we could get reimbursement from the state from. That's kind of what they do. Does that kind of understand my explanation there?
Mr. Dickinson?
I didn't understand that at all, but I have a question. We talked about years, in the resolution it says 2014 through 2019, is that correct? Is this a contract, are we making a $5,200 payment before the end of December, or?
The $5,200 payment will come for the years 2018 through 2020. I didn't look at the resolution to see exactly how it was written, so I should have.
Am I looking at the right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, this one says 2014 to 16, 5,200.
15 to 20.
17 to 19 is $5 grand.
Yeah, and the agenda is 15
And the
to
agenda
20.
is different than what it says in the resolution.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, no, the cost,
All right.
Amanda had spoken with Rob, and the cost is for the 2014 will be paid in 2015, right? So it's like a year.
A year.
2014.
Okay.
We're paying.
I get it, okay.
Oh, that makes sense.
Do we understand the issue? There's a lag time here.
Yeah.
Mr. Monroe?
Yeah, I just wonder, does anybody did like a cost-benefit analysis to see if we're going to save more than we're spending to figure out how much we could save?
No, we have not. Mainly because we're required to do this.
Required, yeah, mandate. So it might cost us more than we save.
Possibility. We can look into that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, what happens here is both the state and federal government, if you're going to have an indirect charge, you have to observe certain methodologies for calculating that, and you have to show them that when they come in and they do their audit. So that if you have a grant, for example, and you're applying an indirect charge against that grant, you have to demonstrate exactly how you came to that fee.
Okay.
Alrighty, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of item 2A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2A is carried. Item 2B, request to fill the vacant position of account clerk number 1, 19 hours per week, grade 4 annual base salary of $12,279. Chair will entertain a motion to bring this to the floor for discussion. Bud, Bill, thank you. Mike, what do we have here?
We have a resignation for our part-time clerk. This position, the main responsibility is taking care of occupancy tax. And also we use that position for other things, checking vouchers and so forth. This was back, well, when Frank O'Keefe was here and the treasurer's office was kind of downsized. This position was created to when they eliminated another full-time position. So we do need this, especially for the occupancy tax.
Ready. And I'll take this opportunity to thank you, Mike, and your office's help in the recent tax legislation and helping crunch the numbers and helping to put that plan together. We certainly thank you very much for your efforts in that regard.
You're welcome.
All righty, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of item 2B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 2B is carried. Item 3, request from the Clerk of the Board's office, request for a resolution to authorize payment to Warren County Soil and Water Conservation District for 2015 in the amount of $313,000. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 3A. Mr. Dickinson, second. Edna, thank you. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the resolution regarding item 3A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3A is carried. 3B, request for a resolution authorizing payments to SUNY Adirondack in the amount of $618,233 to be made in January, April, and July of 2015. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 3B. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Sokol, thank you. Any discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of item 3B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 3B is carried. Item 4, request from the administrator of Westmount Health Facility, request for a new contract with Northeast Fire Protection System for a lump sum of $2,250 to install 3 dry sidewall sprinklers to cover the overhang outside the administrator's office at the Westmount Health Facility. That's a mouthful. Funding for this expense is available within the existing budget. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 4. Edna, thank you. Second, Mr. Sokol, thank you. What do we have here?
Mr. Chairman, during our recent annual survey, one of the life safety deficiencies that we received was for this overhang that's been on the building since it was built. And we recently sprinklered the building, about a year ago, I guess, was completed. These should have been sprinklered. If it's 4 feet or less, it doesn't have to be. It's 52.5 inches from the building out, so they said they had to have sprinklers. And to have that done with the dry sprinklers, it'd be like 3 of them. It's about $22.50 to do that.
Wow. It's outside?
It's outside.
It's outside.
And they wanted us to sprinkler the canopy
Yeah.
also, but if they said if it wasn't hooked to the building anymore, you wouldn't have to sprinkler it. So we took the 4 bolts out and it's not hooked to the building anymore. We saved money there.
And they being the
State.
state.
How about his car? Is his car sprinkled?
Any further discussion? Any further questions?
No.
There being none, are we ready? All those in favor of item 4 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 4 is carried. Item 5, referral from the County Facilities Committee, Building and Grounds, request to establish Capital Project H 355-9550.280 Municipal Center security renovations in the amount of $20,000 to provide secure entrances to the Municipal Center. The County Facilities Committee has requested the Finance Committee to determine a source of funding for this capital project. Chair will entertain a motion to bring this to the floor for discussion. Mr. Dickinson, second. Mr. Kenny. Discussion. Mr. Kenny?
Yeah, I'd like to address A and B together.
Would you, just a moment, Mr. Dickinson, would you like to amend the resolutions to discuss both items 5A and B?
Yes.
Mr. Kenny was the second. You concur?
Yes.
All right. Discussion, Mr. Kenny.
This is an item you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. If you vote no on it, and something happens, they point the finger at you. If you vote yes on it, you're being overly cautious and you're wasting money. Having said that, before I could vote for this, I would need to know incidents dates of incidents that happened, and, if a security guard or a magnetometer would have prevented the incidents. And, therefore, I urge everybody to vote no at this time.
Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, I mean, that was gonna be kind of in line with my comments. I think the magnetometer is overboard. I mean, I think, you know, securing some of the doors is fine, but putting a magnetometer at DMV just isn't, I just can't see that working out for the public. I mean, having just come back and went through TSA, you know, by the time you empty your pockets, get all the duffel out of your pockets, you know, you get a mechanic coming in there, he may have a wrench in his pocket or something like that, he's gotta empty his pockets, go through the magnetometer, he's on his noon hour. I could see a line being out to the parking lot, just trying to move them through that. I mean, the locking of the doors, I think is appropriate. You know, I know we have the security person there, but I just think the magnetometer is a little overkill at DMV. That's all I wanted to say. You know, I wish we could do this. I mean, I'm all for security. I'm all for locking the doors and having our employees feel safe, but a magnetometer at DMV, I don't know. I just don't think that's the right thing to do.
We've worked 15 years on the stigma that's been attached to our DMV as being slow and being inefficient, and we're finally overcoming that. And to stop traffic going in there in any fashion, I'm against.
Mr. Monroe?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, I don't think there's any such thing as cradle to graves, absolute security. I mean, it's, you know, there's hazards out there, and you can't protect everyone, every place they go, all the time. And so, what I see is that we should be looking at what threat are we trying to protect against. Is it terrorists? And if it's terrorists, a magnetometer and, you know, 1 or 2 civilian security guards aren't gonna do anything to stop them. The same thing with an individual determined to target one of our employees. They're out in the parking lot in the morning, maybe at noon when they go out to lunch. They're out at the end of the day. So I don't see that being a magnetometer being any protection for that kind of a threat. The only thing I think it has the potential to protect against is somebody deranged and just, you know, determined to go in and create mayhem. But, you know, you don't have that same kind of protection when you go to church, when you go to your school, when you go to the shopping mall. I mean, unless we make fortresses all over the country, we're not gonna protect against it. And I don't think we should be, just saying that we need to protect ourselves from the public we're serving. I think it sends a bad message and it creates a false sense of security. I don't have a problem with locking the doors, but I'm very much against the magnetometer.
Mr. Dickinson?
I have several minor questions. We're just talking about the DMV entrance?
I believe the plan was for both entrances.
Well, the magnetometer is at DMV, but
Right.
locking the doors was in other areas of the building, I believe.
Frank?
There's a second magnetometer at probation.
Paul?
Mr. Chairman, the plan that was presented to the committee actually comprised a couple of different parts, or 3 different parts to be exact. One phase, and there is money involved in the first phase, was to simply secure a number of the entrances and give people fobs to get in through those entrances so that we steer the public more towards the DMV entrances. And that seemed to make a lot of sense for a couple of reasons. One is that it's not uncommon to have people wandering around the building not knowing where they're going, so that could be a very helpful thing to the public, actually. The second thing it does do, though, is it does help to improve security in as much as somebody can't slip into the building unknown. They would, if they came in through the DMV entrance, forget the magnetometer or the extra security guard, but if they just come in without those 2 pieces, there's still going to be there's a security guard there. There is one there now. And that person can be helpful to the public in terms of steering them to the right place. That person can also be part of our security measures, at least being able to spot something, hopefully, that doesn't look quite right. So that would give you a line of defense, at least without having the fortress appearance of the magnetometer there as well as the corrections guard. So, but there is an expense to doing that first phase. The other piece that was looked at was upgrading the magnetometer that's in the probation area or for the legal aid services. That is pretty old and ancient and doesn't work that well, and so the recommendation on that was to replace that as part of this program. So the funding costs could be sharply limited if you didn't hire the extra security agent and you didn't do the magnetometer for the DMV area. But if you did the magnetometer and authorized the rest of the program, which included the locking of the other doors and the fobs and the things that go with that, I think that would be a good compromise provision. But there is a cost to that, and I just wanted to make sure you're aware of that you could split this up if you were so inclined.
Bill suggested that we vote no. I don't agree we ought to vote no on security, but I think it would be a good idea to table it and send it back to Amy and let her rework this, telling her that we think that there's no need for the magnetometer and that we would like to see the doors locked with the fobs entrance. And but there's some things that come up there. There's meetings at nighttime in here. People might have a problem getting into the building. So I think that has to be considered.
Well, can I respond to that? Because I think that's an excellent point on the night meetings, but we do have that already taken care of because the buildings are locked at 5 o'clock. When we have night meetings, Barbara, who is our key head janitorial person here, we leave a door unlocked, and she is also aware of every night meeting. So we do have a coordinated approach to handling night meetings now. The other thing I would mention is that the proposal that was presented by Amy and her group on this did break out the pieces as I suggested. So you could authorize the first phase, which, as I mentioned, would be just the securing of the building, not the magnetometers and not the extra security guard. And then you could also authorize the new magnetometer for the probation and the legal aid area. That would be about $3,500, I think, if I recall correctly. And that is an identified plan that they did break out. And then you don't have to go all the way to the to the nth degree on this.
Supervisor Brock?
Yeah, I looked at the October minutes that sort of started this whole thing, and this is almost more of a question. I was going to sort of investigate this later. Kate Hogan talked about how she had a death threat made against her and her department, and I thought maybe, I don't know, would having a magnetometer after DMV sort of protect her until the new court building is built, or is she already protected with the probation thing? I don't know for sure, but she did bring that up when we were talking about security, and maybe we ought to talk to her about what exactly she was talking about, or, because that's more than just, someone randomly coming in and doing something. That's a real threat. The state police had said that this was a real threat, and they had suggested that people have a picture not to let this person into the building. I don't know if that's adequate or what. Like I said, I was going to do research after this meeting to find out more, so I'm asking.
Well, we have a proposal from Mr. Taylor to table this, send it back to committee, and maybe come back to us in a phased, more of a phased approach. We have other people that want to weigh in on this. I'll entertain that as a motion, but here in a second, unless you want to put it on the table now.
Well, Paul is saying that we don't have to do that.
We do.
As he explained.
We do have a limited plan. It was developed in phases just for that purpose, in case the magnetometer and the correction or the security officer was a little too much, and that's what I'm getting the sense from several supervisors. So there is a phase, a lesser phase that would be lesser expensive and not involve that, like I say, that additional security officer and the magnetometer at the front. In other words, the front would stay essentially the same at DMV, right, as you see right now. But what would happen is some of these other doors would be locked, and quite frankly, I really recommend that, because we have had situations, like I say, where people are wandering around the building, You do have a very unsecured environment. Employees do feel unsafe. We did take a first step to locking the doors in the morning until like about 7:45. We also make sure they're locked right after the close of business at the end of the day. But during the day, there are places in the building, the basement areas that are accessible, and people can slip in and out, side entrances. I think it would be really a good move on the part of the county to at least implement the first phase of the plan. I think there was some very good recommendations behind that. The other parts, I can see where the argument of the fortress and whether or not it's really worthwhile to do all of that. I can see where that could be, certainly debated, and certainly you could postpone that phase if you wanted to discuss that further at a later date.
The price tag on that first phase would be how much?
Amy, do you have that price tag on the first phase?
I do. Upgraded software for the fob reader system, $5,084. The camera, $3,000 for equipment. One metal detector if you chose to replace the one at probation, $3,846.50.
Rachel, you wanted to say something?
I just, I'm sure I'm in the minority here, and that's okay, but I wanted to point out that according to the U.S. Department of Labor, nearly 2 million Americans that go to work every day are victims of workplace violence. I absolutely think that this is a project that we should look at all-inclusively, that we don't have crystal balls. I'm sure if you start talking to some of these places that have experienced mass violence and tragedy, they didn't expect that it was going to walk through their door either. I just think that for the price tag, we certainly spend money on a lot of other different things, and we have a lot more discussion about those things as well. I think that 2 years ago this got brought up to the committees, and you decided not to go this route. But I have absolutely no problem standing in line going through a magnetometer. And I think that when you look at DSS and the incidents, Mr. Kenny, you referenced, you'd like to see some of those incidents. I asked for a list of, what incidents we've had over the last 5 years, and those are only the reported ones. And while they're not a staggering number, I'm really uncomfortable putting a price tag or trying to determine, somebody's safety when somebody walks through an unsecured area or doesn't go through a magnetometer and has a knife or a gun. I think it's a small price tag to pay for somebody's safety, and you're right, you're either spending too much money or you don't care about people's safety. But I think in this circumstance, when we look statistically across the country, there are a lot of small communities out there who never thought they would be the target of workplace violence, and I think it's a step in the right direction. So I know many of you have talked about not wanting to go forward with the magnetometer, but I am one that I feel strongly about it, and I hope that you'll consider it. Thank you.
Peter?
The Post-Star is a very well-written editorial. Again, not to give plaudits to the Post-Star, but the Bureau of, and I'm just going to paraphrase. I don't know who wrote the editorial, but it was right in the middle of the where it ought to be. The Bureau of Labor Statistics show in 1993 workplace homicides nationally numbered 1,329. They have been falling ever since to 397 last year. Other workplace violence episodes have also been declining. 20 years ago, we could make maybe a much stronger argument for a device like this. I don't think you can effectively make the case today. I come in that entrance, that's how I come in. Currently have a security guard there. I think they do an excellent job. I think the device at the motor vehicle entrance presents an us versus them mentality. The good people inside, and maybe the bad people coming into the building. That's the attitude that I think we run the risk of. And it would seem to me that supervisors who run towns, and God bless you guys, if you're going to vote on a device like this for the motor vehicle side, you ought to get ready to do the same thing in your own communities. I was in City Hall in Glens Falls Friday. This is just not going to happen in the city of Glens Falls because it's just a financial issue. And the people in that building are just as valuable as the people in this building. So there's, I think, a limit in terms of what we're attempting to do. Motor vehicle. Revenue derived from this county, for this county. We have to be proactive in encouraging people to do it the old-fashioned way and do their activities at motor vehicle in Warren County, so we need to be proactive to increase revenue within this county. So I think a device like this at that entrance is a bad idea, and I think it just basically, we could very well be the only county in the state of New York that basically would have a building like this. So, again, I would vote against this.
Mr. Monroe? I mean, if we started here along the same lines, you know, what about the DPW building, Countryside, Westmount, our town halls, highway garages? I mean, are we gonna secure all of these places? And if not, why would we do it here? So I'm prepared to make a motion to do the initial phases that Paul suggested, to do the key fobs on the doors, upgrade the magnetometer at probation, and not hire a second security guard.
And then there's some cameras too.
Yeah,
Mr.
the
Dickinson?
I'd like to second that. We seem to have a lot of people interested in the whole thing. I have a couple of comments, though. Rachel's definitely in the minority, whether she wants to be there or not. I'm a little confused about the whole thing. I mean, you come in the front entrance, the sidewalk's 25 feet wide, you walk in, and the only security we have there is Maggie, and she's there part-time. Yeah, what? I'm not taking any risks there. I come in another door if I was really up to something.
You gotta say hello to us.
So, yeah, and don't call me names. And then I'm a little confused. I mean, I come in the motor vehicle side there, and there's usually a guard there. Apparently, I'm not very suspicious of them.
There wasn't this morning.
Yeah, they never stop and ask me anything. I don't know. We run the whole gamut with the building, from totally unsecured to, I mean, I go in to see my brother-in-law, and I go through the magnetometer there in my underwear. Besides that, I spent about 5 minutes in the car taking out all my weapons and metallurgy, so it doesn't take me so long when I'm in the building. So I agree with Fred. I second the motion. I think we need to move on those pertinent parts, and then I think we need to back up with the rest of it and get everybody up to speed here. We obviously got a lot of different opinions where we're gonna go.
Bill?
I think we need to carefully assess the risk. I mean, when I buy a car insurance, I assess the risk, and if I need full glass coverage, I take into consideration how many windshields have I replaced in the last 10 years or whatever. And without a list of incidents that took place, and would they have been prevented by a guard or key fob or magnetometer, and what's to stop somebody from wandering around the building once they come in that entrance? They're gonna wander around anyway, even if a guard's there.
Yeah, I think that's certainly potentially true, but a couple of things. First of all, some of the people that are wandering around are because they have no direction, they have anybody to ask. So if we're steering the public primarily to our main entrances at the DMV area, there will be plenty of opportunity for them to ask to get to the right area. So we're actually serving the public in that regard. I think it'll make their visit here easier. As part of this, we would also improve the signage outside to steer the people to that entrance so that they get that full service. The other aspect of it is I think just having, and this is where I can see the lack of the need for the magnetometer myself, as well as the additional security guard, but just having the security guard there, that presence there, I think that helps to send a message, not to the good people that come into our facilities, because certainly most of our citizens, if not all of them that come in here, are good. But if there is somebody who does have some sort of ill will towards somebody in this facility or people in the facility, that officer at the front door, I think, does help. At least it sends a message that there are some eyes on you, and so I think there's a benefit to that. There have been, just so you know, there was a list of items that were confiscated from folks that went into the social services building, so they do have that. And it's an interesting item of lists that they have. Also, the sheriff keeps a record of the items over in his facilities, but I think you could argue his facility is a little different than ours. But the social services facility does provide some illustrations as to at least what people do carry into the buildings with them. But I think that at least if the committee would agree to partially handling this, I can see, like I say, a benefit to the public as well as an enhanced security that would at least eliminate or not eliminate, but help to control that possibility of somebody with, some malice of some kind coming into the building and seeking to do something they're not supposed to do. At least we're going to make it a little harder for that person to get in. Is it a guarantee? Absolutely not. I wouldn't want to have the employees think that. But will it help? I think it definitely will, because at least it'll have more eyes on that individual who might have some ill will coming in, and maybe even stop that individual at that point.
I'm in favor of Fred's resolution, but I do have a question. Should we hold off on the magnetometer for the courts until we make sure that we're not going to duplicate or do something unnecessary when we put the court edition on?
Well,
that is a good point, and I hadn't quite frankly thought of that till you just said that. We are doing a lot of work over there on that side of the building. It might be a good idea to hold off on that.
if we did, that would, bring the estimate singularly to the 5,084, Amy?
What?
Am I reading this, that the fob system was $5,000
The software was $5,084 and the cameras are $3,000,
and the cameras are
so $8,000.
$8,000. And, Dennis, Mr. Dickinson?
You can call me Dennis.
I know I can.
No. I think, we could do Fred's, resolution, with a condition that if we buy this magnetometer, that it will fit into our future plans, and then if it doesn't, that we eliminate it from purchase now.
Yeah, Jeff, did you, wanna make a comment,
Yes, if I could.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't believe there was a modification planned on the probation entrance, but we can certainly hold on that until the court modification, or schematic moves forward. As you know from hearing all the discussion on that, that's awaiting a go-ahead from the Office of Court Administration, which we anticipate here any day now. The other part of the modifications that weren't discussed were some, entrance modifications down around DMV in anticipation of creating more space for a magnetometer. I think part of those things, we might wanna retain some money in the project to provide a better workspace for the security guard. I think that was, it was implemented as a temporary measure. I think, we've heard very little negative, if any, about having a security guard there. Right now, they're kind of plopped onto a steel desk, with not a lot of space or even space to, a closet to put their jacket in or anything like that. So I would recommend that we reduce, if you wanna hold on the one magnetometer, that would reduce the overall project by, approximately $4,000. If we keep the upgraded magnetometer for probation in the project, we can at least hold on that until we're comfortable that entrance will not change. I'd encourage you to approve the project at $16,000 to give us a little bit of ability to create a new workstation. As was mentioned, by Amy, I think initially part of the plan is to add some interior cameras and even some exterior cameras, so that one security guard sitting by DMV is really has visibility over the entire building. And with the turns in the hallways and the multiple entrances and really the shape of the building, that security guard has very little visibility on what's going on anywhere else other than that immediate entrance area. So part of the funding could establish a better workstation for the security guard to be able to accommodate those monitors that we're gonna be able to add in there and the camera system. One thing that is important to know when we discuss a little bit of facilities is virtually all of this would be installed by county personnel. The Lindstar is our contractor that would activate the additional fob, readers, both on the exterior entrances and then also on the basement doors. But other than that, it's largely being handled in-house. One other thing I wanted to note was during facilities, I had mentioned that we would be scouring all of the DPW budgets across the board, as we've been doing. As you've seen, the number of transfer requests and budget amendments, and there's more coming before the board meeting. But we do have a code in this building code, under buildings and grounds, our 162413 code, which is our electricity code that we have 20,000 available for. I think we're safe getting.
One more time on that number?
It's A 162413. And I'm sorry, it's not electricity, it's, building maintenance and repair code.
Building maintenance and repair.
Right. So if the committee wishes to proceed with everything except the DMV, everything but the DMV, magnetometer, I would recommend a capital project of 16,000. We have that in that code I just mentioned.
Well, just so we're clear, Fred, were you thinking on the second, Mr. Dickinson, were you thinking on your motion included the fob? Did it also include the cameras?
Yes.
Did it also include anything beyond that?
Well, the magnetometer for probation, but I understand maybe you wanna hold on that.
So are you interested in amending or clarifying your motion to either include or exclude that item?
I guess I don't know enough about it. I mean, is it an issue that we shouldn't be buying it now, Paul?
Well, I guess the recommendation is to authorize it, but don't buy it until we're sure we're going to need it, because we don't wanna waste money.
I'm fine with that, and I guess I would be willing to further amend it to do what, Jeff suggested. Make a better workspace for the current security guard.
I agree with that.
And the funding to come from
Jeff.
the budget code, maintenance and repair, building maintenance repair as you recited. Is everyone clear on the motion? All those in favor of the motion signify by raising your hand.
It's a quiz.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Supervisor Sieber? Mm-hmm.
Paul, do you have a sense or a pulse on the employees in that DMV, treasurer's office, county clerk's office, and, ideally how they're feeling, their safety level, what they'd like to see, if not, as a survey gone out? I think obviously this is a step in the right direction. I know the votes aren't there for the all-inclusive ideal of it, in my opinion, but I'm wondering, what do we know from the employee perspective?
First of all, I haven't myself talked to the individual employees in those departments, but I have heard from a number of department heads their concern about the security in this building, which is one of the reasons I was advocating for at least getting that part of it done, because I could understand the concerns about the fortress. Amy Kloot may have some additional information on the individual or those particular departments.
Actually, what I was hoping to just share is you talked about incidents. I did put together an incident list and shared it with facilities and a couple other supervisors specifically asked. What I would like to do is, since the article came out in the Post-Star, the two of them, I've heard a lot from our employees. I've heard from several, I should say, of incidents that I didn't even know about that have not been reported. So I'd like to canvass the employees here and ask about those incidents that I'm not hearing about, and compile that with what I have, and then I'll get that to the full board, if that would be okay.
Copy of that list.
Certainly. I'll send this to this committee when I get back. These are the reported incidents. Keep in mind that workplace violence laws have only been in effect since 2007, and we really sometimes don't have a good handle on reporting the things that go on, but if they hit this, they're usually large. The other thing that I'd leave the committee to think for, and I haven't researched it, I'm sure the Post-Star will research it, is why is workplace violence incidents going down? Is it because facilities have done things like we're proposing? I don't know, I haven't researched it, but that would be something would be interesting to look into when workplace violence came out in 2007, to know why that's occurring. But I thank you for your motion to make this a safer place to work for our employees.
I'll allow a little more discussion, but we have to move on. Mike, you had something you
Just something real quick. I mean, for 24 years, I've been sitting at that end of the building. And we need to lock down those outside doors there, especially over at the real property end. I mean, that is a wide open spot going right, you can go right into the basement and come up anywhere in this building from there. On the security guard over there, I was one of the people that requested that we have that security guard. That is working. It has helped in my office where we have a lot of irate people come in because they're a little upset about having to pay their taxes sometimes. And sometimes maybe are under the influence of other substances. And that security guard having a present there has helped us tremendously. Because the women in my office now feel that they know that if they've got something and I don't happen to be there like right now, they can flag that guy and he can be in there and put a damper on the situation. So that's working. A lot of them would like to see the magnetometer. I'm not so sold on that yet. I kind of agree that, you know, we need to have the public flow there. But at absolute minimum, we gotta lock down these outside doors and not just for safety, but it will help the general public. Because they come in all these different doors, they have no idea where they're going, because there's no directional signs.
One more. Doug, you had something?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. I was just wondering, what comparison do we have from other counties? For example, does Washington County have similar, security? Have we even looked into what other counties do, and have we looked into the incident rates of other counties to really get a general feel for this? Because I can't believe that Warren County would be an isolated county, in the state. So if there's a pattern or trend that all these other counties are doing it because of the significant incidents, then maybe I could change my way of thinking. But I just don't think we've done enough homework yet, at least for me, to go along with some of these things. I believe in the fob and locking down the systems, like Mike said. I wouldn't be in favor of another security guard. We have one now. That additional $40,000 a year to me is a lot of money. So if we have that information, Amy, please share it, or what other counties are doing. I know I went over to Washington County a couple of weeks ago and walked right in, and there's nobody there, there's nothing. Now, is that good or bad, I don't know, but they didn't have anything.
Amy, we haven't need to get more, but if you could share that information with the supervisors, that would
I'll
be...
do some work on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you. We'll move on now to, item 6, on the action agenda, referrals from the health services.
Did we vote on that?
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, we should have.
Yeah, we voted.
I believe we did vote.
Sort of.
Did someone not raise their hand?
6-2.
All right. 6, a referral from the Health Services Committee, Public Health. 6A, request to amend the 2015 county budget to adjust the disease program to reflect the receipt of unanticipated revenues and appropriations in the amount of $12,000 for the New York State Department of Health Performance Incentive Initiative Award. Please note this item will be held for presentation at the January 16, 2015 board meeting. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 6A. Mr. Kenny, second. Mr. Taylor, thank you. Discussion?
What is this?
Grant that Health Services received, and they, will need to expend funds from it early in the year, so they won't be having another committee meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? There being none, we're ready for the question. All those in favor of item 6A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6A is carried. 6B, request to amend the 2014 county budget to adjust the family health program to reflect the receipt of unanticipated revenues and appropriations in the amount of $739 for a cost of living adjustment to the Children and Special Health Care Needs Grant. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 6B. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Merlino, thank you. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor of item 6B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6B is carried. 6C, Westmount Health Facility, request to amend the 2014 county budget to reflect the receipt of unanticipated revenues and appropriations in the amount of $1,200 for an insurance recovery reimbursement relating to the replacement of dentures for a Westmount resident. Chair will entertain-
I'm not gonna ask.
Thank you. Chair appreciates that, Mr. Kenny.
The dog ate it, my dentures.
All those in favor of item 6C signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 6C is carried.
A couple gold teeth in it, yeah. My dad had it.
Item 7, Referral from the Human Services Committee, Employment and Training Administration, request to amend the 2014 county budget to reflect the receipt of unanticipated revenues and appropriations in the amount of $34,860 as reimbursement for training of 5 dislocated workers for the Federal Trade Adjustment Act. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 7A. Mr. Monroe, Ms. Frazier, thank you. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of item 7A signify by saying aye. Opposed? Item 7A is carried. 7B, request to amend the 14 county budget to reflect the receipt of unanticipated revenues and appropriations in the amount of $2,136 from the Federal Ticket to Work Program. Chair will entertain a motion regarding 7B. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Sokol, thank you. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of item 7B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 7B is carried. Item 8, referrals from the Public Works Committee, DPW, request to increase capital project H328.9550280, West Mountain Road bicycling improvements in the amount of $12,750 to include the 15% state Marchicelli funding share.
I'll
Chair-
move A and B.
we have a motion by Mr. Kenny to move items A and B. Do we have a second? Mr. Merlino, thank you. Any further discussion regarding items 8A and 8B? There being none, all those in favor of items 8A and B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 8A and B are carried. We also have another resolution from Public Works. The purpose of the amendment is to transfer funds from the general funds, buildings and grounds, and increase the county road, snow, and ice supplies. The appropriation code, object code, full title and amount D.5142.410, county road, snow, and ice supplies, $40,000. The revenue code is D.5010.5031, county road, highway administration, interfund transfer, $40,000. Jeff, what do we have here?
These are transfers within the budget. We are short in salt right now, so we've done some recent ordering to get us through the end of the year.
Alrighty, do we have a motion regarding this resolution? Mr. Sokol, Mr. Merlino, thank you. Any further discussion?
Has it gone up significantly, the cost of salt?
Oh, yeah.
Jeff?
Skyrocket.
25%.
That's a big yes.
Yeah.
Alrighty, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution is carried. Referral from the Support Services Committee, Self-Insurance Administration. Request to authorize the county treasurer to make interfund transfers of unencumbered monies in the self-insurance fund of up to the maximum amount of $4 million to the contributory reserve fund. Chair will entertain a motion regarding item 9. Mr. Dickinson, second. Ms. Frazier, what do we have here? Is this for Mike?
I'm not sure, it's the first I've seen this one.
Went through,
That was what we just had in the meeting before.
Support Services?
Yes.
The self-insurance program.
Okay.
Right.
Puts money into it.
Your guys call it.
Alrighty. Have we brought this, we haven't brought this to the floor yet. Alright, Chair will entertain a motion to bring item 9 to the floor.
I'm sorry.
We have? Okay, we
Already done
have. Any further questions then?
Do we know what it is?
The reserve fund for self-insurance, right?
Mr. Chairman?
I believe it's excess money, premium money that on occasion, we haven't been able to do it for 5 years is what she stated, so they wanna put it into the reserve, the self-insurance reserve fund. Excess premium.
Okay. Everyone clear? Alrighty.
Where's mud?
Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of item 9 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 9 is carried. Item 10, request items to be discussed by the county administrator. Item 10A, request for a contingent fund transfer in the amount of $20,694.18 to adjust the budget for the Human Resources Civil Service Division is contingent upon prior approval, which did happen in the Personnel Committee. Paul, any further comments regarding this?
No, Mr. Chairman, unless an explanation is needed by members who weren't here.
Let's get it to the floor first then. Can we have a motion to bring 10A to the floor? Mr. Taylor, second, Mr. Kenny. Any questions from the committee? There being none, are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of item 10A signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Item 10B, all those opposed? Item 10A is carried. 10B, request to increase the insurance termination reserve TO 20.02 to $1 million. An insurance termination reserve was previously established in the amount of $550,000 in 2011, which represented one-half of the potential cost if the county decided to terminate coverage with BSNENY. The current estimated insurance termination liability is $1 million, and the county has enough funds available to sustain the entire estimated termination liability. Paul, you want to comment on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. This relates back to this past fall when we were talking about our Blue Shield health insurance policy. And at that time, as board members will know, as part of the budget process, we were able to secure a 4% increase in that cost, which was very good compared to previous years where we had been looking at almost 10% cost increases at some times. And as part of this entire plan, this entire health insurance plan started a number of years ago, and it's been a work in progress. And we've been moving through various ways of trying to save the county money in the insurance program. And you're looking at one of our earliest steps here in 2011, and we took a little bit of risk. We took the risk that we moved to a lesser expensive plan that would save the county money, but at the time we took it, we knew we didn't have enough if at the end of 1 year we wanted to leave. So what we did is we budgeted $550,000 because that's all we could afford at that time. But the potential for the gains, after a very careful study, were so apparent to us at that time, we felt we had to go ahead. And even though we had a $500,000 exposure, we felt that it was still advisable to move ahead. Of course, that was 2011. Now we're fast forward to 2014. I'm happy to report, of course, as I just mentioned in our last budget, everything that we've been moving ahead on the insurance has worked out. And in fact, we have built a reserve. And now's the time, because we have that money in reserve, and it can only be used, by the way, for health insurance. We can't take it and use it for other county funds. So now that we have that extra money within the reserve, we are just asking that the resolution now be amended to very clearly set up that $1 million as a safety number in case we ever did leave that insurance company to switch to another company. Why would we do that? We may find at some point that it's more advantageous to us to move to another insurance company, maybe less expensive. So we want to make sure that the money's there. We don't want to use it. For instance, you say, well, why would you ever worry about using it? Well, this year, for instance, we did a 4%. If you used the $550,000 or the $450,000 we had, we probably could have had a 3%, for instance. But we didn't want to do that because we wanted to make sure we could have enough money to put into this reserve. So this is just amending the prior resolution, bringing the reserve up to $1 million. It's not new money. It's already there. It's just allocating it to that particular fund. And I certainly strongly recommend it to you because that gives us that security. We no longer have to take that risk going forward.
What's the committee's pleasure? Do we have a motion? Mr. Monroe, do we have a second? Mr. Merlino, thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of item 10B signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 10B is carried. Anything else, Paul, on your end?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I apologize for not having this out on the agenda. We've, as I think everyone at this point knows, I've been without a secretary. I'm a little disorganized at this point, and so some of this stuff came up at the last minute. One item is a resolution that needs to be amended. You had adopted 452, which authorized a payment in the Kathleen Plummer settlement. It has been recommended that that particular payment be paid out of the new code that we previously set up for these types of matters. The new code is A3150419, and that would be amended, and a transfer of funds from A1910418 to 3150419 would occur at the December meeting. We would spell this out in more specific, but this is really just changing codes to match up with our accounting in the treasurer's office on this. So it's, here again, no new money. It's already been voted on you. You've already settled the case, but now we're just lining up the codes, so that it's in proper order for the end of the year.
Mr. Dickinson on the motion, Mr. Sokol on the second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the resolution as advanced signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Anything else?
Just a couple of more, Mr. Chairman. One is, Westmount, the administrator contacted me concerning, being able to hire, temporary staff when needed. He has a number of contracts out there with different organizations, and he wants to have 2 more organizations under contract in the event that he needs those organizations, for staff purposes. These are last resorts. They're only used when we don't have current staffing in the facility to adequately staff. He may never even touch these, but on the other hand, he wants to have many different agencies available so that he can draw down if he needs it. And as you know, we're getting to a point where this will be considered at your next meeting as well as the sale of the facility, but this is to help us with the operations in the interim. Here again, you already have these contracts. This is just authorizing a couple of other contractors so that he can do that. So I would ask for permission to bring that to the board meeting in a resolution.
Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Monroe, any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Do you also want to discuss transfers at this time?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Well, maybe I could do like a little preamble, just to set the stage on this. We have, here at Finance, all roads lead to finance, as you know, and in terms of our operating condition. And we generally here entertain 3 types of transfers. We have transfers that happen inside a departmental budget. And at the end of the year in particular, there are all kinds of transfers that take place. We usually get a summary sheet. They also happen throughout the year. Then we have transfers that we need to make that come out of our contingency account. Those would be transfers to different codes where there was either no appropriation or insufficient appropriation to cover the anticipated expense. And then we have transfers that are generally tend to be larger that come out of our fund balance. They tend to be larger than you would want to go to your contingency fund for, and they tend to be for larger projects, usually unanticipated again, or they would be in the budget to begin with. And so just if you could kind of think of it in those terms, and then maybe, I think that covers it pretty well. Paul, maybe you could pick it up from there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, what I'm proposing today for the committee's consideration is speaking to the transfers, the first set of transfers that the chairman referred to. These are transfers within the department's budgets to cover deficits that occur in different line items. And the reason those deficits can occur is because when we do our budgets, we are very, very conservative. We force departments to really think long and hard before they put a number down, and we assure them that, hey, if you do put a number down in that and you run over, that's not a problem. We'll cover that. Because we don't want, and the whole idea is we don't want departments building artificially high budgets just to protect themselves because they somehow think that they're going to get burnt if they don't have enough money in their budget. So we really encourage them to come in with that really right on the line number, and sometimes those numbers just don't work out, but that's what a budget's all about. That's why they call it a budget. So in those instances where we're just simply clearing up budget lines through the end of the year, within a department's budget, this means it's not coming out of contingency, as mentioned by the chairman. It's not coming out of the the unappropriated fund balance, and it's not for new expenditures that weren't authorized. Like today, for instance, the $16,000 for the security measures. It would not be that situation. This is just for those situations that I described, where the monies were not adequate in the funds to cover for whatever reason. They spent more in electricity than they thought they were going to. They spent more in health insurance because they got a new employee that took a family policy instead of the current employees who had individual policies. There could be any number of reasons why these budgets don't work out. But if it's a transfer within the department, what we're asking is if I, as your county administrator, could be authorized by resolution to handle and approve those budget transfers in those particular instances. The reason why we would like to move in that direction is a couple of reasons. One is that and even today, it's very difficult for all the departments to have everything closed out in a timely fashion for this meeting. In fact, there will be more, budget transfers coming forth at the next board meeting, because everybody just couldn't get them done on time. And sometimes it's a point where even at the board meeting, that time period, all of a sudden they get surprised that they just don't have them. You would not believe the number of health insurance, in particular, retiree health insurance, current health insurance, where the departments are making adjustments all through their line items. And that may happen even after the board meeting. The hope is that we can catch all of those under this new circumstance, and it'll help us to avoid being in the red at the closeout of the year when the Treasurer's Office finally close out the books on any one of these lines. It's not spending new money. It's just simply transferring within the departments. It's not authorizing new purchases. And like I say, it's not taking money out of contingency. It's not taking money out of unassigned fund balance, because those, I think, should go before you. It's just simply authorizing this adjustment and flow of money so that every account ends up, to the extent we can, in the black. The other thing it'll do for us, it'll give us a better understanding of the numbers too when we go through the budget process each year, because we'll be personally handling those. And I think that that'll just help the process. So it'll help you folks in terms of that you don't have to review these. It'll help us, and then I think also it'll just help the departments in terms of getting into the, making sure all those accounts are into the black, and we can handle them even after the board meeting. So that would be my request, is that at the next board meeting, if this committee authorized it, Mr. Chairman, would be to authorize, excuse me, a resolution, limited in that fashion.
In terms of reporting and public disclosure, would your thinking be as that you would provide us at our monthly meeting or more often a sheet that represents all the transfers that have taken place to that point?
I certainly could do that.
And that way it would be available to the public as well, be available to the committee to review the transfers that have taken place, or is there some other type of reporting mechanism you would envision, perhaps to the board at the monthly meeting as well?
I think we could do whatever would make the most sense for the board members, how you'd like to handle it. It would be some sort of post-reporting, maybe similar to what the Human Resource Director is doing on the positions, that at least you know what's happening in terms of the budget. And I think that I don't envision a lot of this at the beginning of the year. It just increases as you go through the year, as people start to run out of money in different line items. And it's like I say, it would not be for new expenditures. It'd just be for adjusting for their best estimates on their budget. That's all.
I'd like to hear from Frank. Frank, if you could comment on this a little. You're the budget officer.
As you can see in the package here, it's quite a while. It's not new money, as long as we have a summary sheet to see what's happening.
Mr. Dickinson?
I would make that as a resolution with the condition that they, on a monthly basis, update the committee, so we can see what they've done prior to the board meeting.
Bill, is that a second?
Yep.
There was a second from Mr. Kenny. Any further discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of the resolution regarding the new procedure on transfers signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Is that it for you, Paul?
That is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now we move on to our esteemed county attorney, Mr. Martin Offerdew.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to request that the committee entertain a motion to convene an executive session. We have a pending enforcement matter with DEC involving the Department of Public Works. I expect it to be a brief session, and I expect action to be taken following the session.
All right. Before we do that, I've just been handed, what's that? Okay, in your packet, an action agenda item, request for transfer of funds attached for committee approval. Request from the District Attorney's Office, request for a contingent fund transfer in the amount of $3,000. The District Attorney's transcript budget is in the negative, and there's still one more month of grand jury appearance and transcript fees.
There's an addendum to everyone's budget.
I believe it's in your, it's in the packet. Budget amendment, this is separate here, isn't it? No. Okay. Chair, I'll entertain a motion. Mr. Monroe, second. Mr. Merlino, thank you. Discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. And, this one we did. Okay, we're also gonna need a request for transfer funds, which is attached for committee approval. We're gonna need a motion on that as well. Edna, Mr. Monroe, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alrighty, now we will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Mr. Monroe, Mr. Merlino, all those in favor? We are moving into executive session, folks, thank you. Alrighty, we're back in, session, or no? Don's gone, okay. Martin, do you want to, describe what we're going to, consider here?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. It's my understanding, based upon the discussions that we've had, that the committee would like to entertain a motion to authorize our chairman to execute a consent stipulation with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation involving a violation of a permit related to a rehabilitation of bridge abutment footings in the town of Stony Creek, and authorize the payment of a civil penalty in the amount of $500, with that payment to come out of the DPW budget or contingency fund.
Mr. Dickinson on the motion. Is there a second? Mr. Monroe, thank you. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Any other business to come before the board, Mr. Monroe?
I would just like to raise the fact that, right now, today, there's a meeting in Albany where they're discussing the award of these, consolidated funding applications. Are they moved it to tomorrow? Okay, well, tomorrow. But in any event, you know, I think we've all seen in the papers, there's like $5 billion of, surplus in the state budget, and from what I've read, the consensus is they want to spend that on infrastructure because they realize it's a one-time revenue, and I think we should, you know, do everything we can to see if we can get, any of that money to help with our court project or other projects for that matter, but specifically the court project.
I would agree, Mr. Sokol.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't believe we hit number 12.
No, we will. We'll take care of that. Let's, on your agenda, item 12, Finance Committee actions required on the following items as approved by the Personnel Committee. Personnel agenda items 2A through E. Chair will entertain a motion regarding this. Mr. Kenny, Mr. Sokol, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Fred, what were you looking for on your,
Well, just that we explore the possibility of, depending on what happens tomorrow and then what the state does with the, you know, with this surplus, that I think it's wise what they're considering, using it for infrastructure, so I think we should explore the possibility that there's money there to help with, local government infrastructure as well as state infrastructure.
Chairman Garrity?
Yeah, I spoke to Senator Little at the AATV meeting.
Yeah.
And mentioned to her that and I spoke to Paul yesterday, and we're gonna formulate a letter requesting funding, as soon as we get a better cost on the expansion project. But I did speak to her, and because NICEAG did tell us during the, intercounty meeting that, you know, these monies, the $5 billion is for one shot. We ought to try to get some money for our court. I did plant the seed.
Alrighty, very good. Any further business? Motion to adjourn, Mr. Kenny, Mr. Dickinson, all in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned, thank you, everyone.
I got the Dave Decker show. Got the Dave Decker show.
How you doing, buddy?
Take it?